Hello, friends. I'm Randy Eager with WebStarget SEO. We manage your internet marketing so that you don't have to. For real estate SEO and real estate SEO companies, we're #1 in the world according to Google. Welcome to our webinar, The Dirty Dozen Problems with Most Agent Websites. We're going to be busy today. This webinar will demonstrate the major reasons that agent websites not only don't make them money, but cost them money every month in time, frustration, and hosting fees. If you haven't had a chance to get the link in the handout, click on the link in the control box questions area to print out the handout. And if you can't click on it to print out, just type it into your browser and you can print the handout and follow along. As you have questions as we go along, feel free to type them into the questions area of the control box, and I'll answer as many of them as I can afterwards on a first-in basis. Now, based upon the hundreds of you attending today, I doubt that there'll be a way for me to get to all of your questions, but I'll try. And finally, I want to thank those of you who sent in your websites to review. I have to admit that I thought that I'd get maybe 3 or 4, but after the first 50 on Monday, I had to cut it off. So I've changed the game plan slightly, and we'll go over the needs of your specific website if you'd like privately to go over these things if we have a chance to do a half-hour interview with you. Of all the websites that were submitted, only 10% got a score of 4 out of 5 or better. Total points were given for the number of 5 most important features that stood out on your web page. Thus, we only had 2 websites with all 5 most important features that stood out prominently on their website. So, here goes. I'm going to give you the top 4 websites that came up that had a score of at least 4 or more. Honorable mentions go to Dave Cole, who had a score of 4 at ValeCondoExperts.com, and Rick Sayers at RickSayers.com. And the 2 website winners with perfect scores are Anita Fager at ValleyRealty.net, and our grand prize winner goes to Delia Reese at DeerValleySpecialist.com. Now let's take a look at the reason that the majority of you did not make the cut, but more importantly, how you can remedy this. And by the way, if you have a chance to talk about your website with me later on, I'll give you your score and why it came in where it did. So let's get started this way. Okay, what you're going to learn today. Mainly we're going to look at the dirty dozen website mistakes. Here you're going to learn what the most common mistakes are in agent websites. It's one thing to have a pretty and even professional looking website, but if it doesn't work for you, what's it worth? Why these mistakes will turn off your prospects. In order to know what's right with websites, you have to know why your website is turning off your visitors. I'll reveal some of the real corkers. What you can do to implement fixes. Of course, once you know what turns off your visitors to your website, you'll want to know how to fix it. That's going to be one of the most important aspects of what I'll cover today. To do this, I'll give you examples of how to implement these fixes the right way. And how feature changes can make your website more market-friendly. So why make these changes? You want to have the most market-friendly website going, a website that compels your visitors to want to give you their name, email address, and phone number. Above all is being found. What's the point of having the best website on the planet if nobody knows you're there? SEO, or search engine optimization, is to website marketing as real estate agents are to home and condo marketing. Create your own website without the use of a professional to market it for you as the same as a FSBO with your website marketing. And you wonder why you're not getting leads. Secondly, design can heavily affect the site's success. The reason why a viewer will stay on your website is primarily content. But with a pleasing and professional design, it will force the viewer to look just a little bit longer than they originally would have to see where the content is. This affects the site's success. Websites rise or fall depending upon content. If you never show the viewer good content, you've lost them. The content and design must dovetail one with another. The interesting thing is that good content can make up for bad design. If the viewer is engaged in reading compelling content, they won't care what the site looks like. Focus on content first and then build your design around your content. Know what you have to say and then figure out the best way to show what you want to say. What your website needs. Based upon what we've just talked about, there are three major areas that we'll need to pay attention to for your website. They are SEO, or search engine optimization, the design of your website, and content issues. Let's take a look at these one at a time. SEO. Do you have frames? Now, I'll shortly demonstrate what frames are, but they can absolutely kill your chances of being seen by the search engines. If you have a website that is 5 to 10 years old or so, you should check. It was probably built with frames. More on this later. Do you have too many graphics? While it might seem that having lots of graphics would make the website look very appealing, for search engines it makes them invisible. Why? Because search engines can't read pictures, graphics, or videos. So we need to learn the right proportion. Do you have congruent content? With Google having changed their algorithm to the way they index their websites, you'll need to understand if your content is congruent. And finally, do you have a blog site? This is critical for your search engine optimization or being found. It's not only that agents are starting to get blog sites, but they're not being done well and are not taking advantage of the morphing relationships that are now a big benefit of having both a website and a blog site. More on this later. Let's talk about design. Do you have rotating slideshows? You should be using tools such as JavaScript or Adobe Flash to run your slideshows, or your webmaster should. These are tools that you should be using to play your slideshows of properties, rooms, or neighborhoods interactively on your website. Do you have featured listings? While most of the website should be built for buyers, this is the area that is specifically built for your sellers to get listings. Do you have multimedia? In other words, photos, podcasts, video, and more. Multimedia is what creates the pizzazz for your website and will cause more interest and professionalism. So what else do we have to look at besides the multimedia? We have to look at the areas of new home alerts. Let's take a look at content then. Let's take a look down here at, do you have bogus content? We've looked at that. Do you have the search the MLS? We were just talking about that. Do you have new home alerts? This is the most critical one. Of all features that you include on your website, this is the one that most agents don't use and is also the most misused, which is interesting as it's the most important to your income. And finally, do you have an RSS feed? RSS feeds are really simple syndication wherein your prospects can subscribe to your website, blog site, or other content that you make available. Is your website search engine friendly? Let's start with the first of the three major areas that we're looking at. So we've established that there are, or may be, some importance of looking or getting to your website and having it seen by the major search engines. Is it really important? Well, showing up on Google, Yahoo, or Bing is no longer a nice to have, it is a must. Google, Yahoo, and Bing. Those are the three search engines you want to be seen. Ask those making $50,000 or more just from their websites if SEO works. I've been fortunate to literally change the lives of many, many agents around the country, and before I show you a little about getting your website seen by the search engines, I'd like to show you some kind of statements that just a few of our clients have made about our SEO services. Pat Wadham, who many of you know from the Baton Rouge, Louisiana area, said, "The minute I started doing SEO with you, the leads really started coming in. I'm in the top 10 of any search because of you." And guess what? This was 8 years ago that Pat made this statement, and she's still #1 and is still with us with her SEO. Barbara Reeves, also an 8-year-old client, been with us for 8 years. "My ratings have zoomed from the web. I am presently getting almost 1,000 hits a day, and the conversion rate has risen. Thank you so much for your help." And I love also Liz Merriman, who said, "It's nice to see the numbers on the report, but even better to see the numbers translate into dollars at the closing table. They are doing that on a regular basis. Thank you." Well, with SEO, we said that there's a couple things you need to be aware of. And the first thing we said was frames. Let's start with the first aspect of SEO, or search engine optimization. Does your website have frames? You can very easily determine this by right-clicking on the main section of your home page and clicking on View Source. Then hold down the Control key and touch the F key. This will bring up a Find dialog box. Now type into the dialog box frames, F-R-A-M-E-S. If your browser indicates that there is nothing that meets this search, you're probably in the clear. If it looks like you do have frames, well, let's look at the problem. Do you make mistake #1? Your website has frames. Here's an example of one of the most common mistakes that we see with websites. First of all, an explanation is needed for what a frame is. Think of a window frame. In this example, the material on the left-hand side is the menu area. The information on the right-hand side is the main data area. The problem is the search engines only see the left-hand side since they read the code left to right. The frustrating thing is that what you want them to read is over on the right-hand side. It's like throwing a party at your duplex and giving people the address to the wrong unit. You can make them come to your building, but not to your party. The original reason for building websites was so that the navigation be created from one window and the website could read from the MLS or the Chamber of Commerce in the other window. Thus, the need for a frame to split the two. This way it would appear that the content on the right hand was owned by the website owner. One note here, by the way, browsers have been able to read frames since Internet Explorer version 3. But they must be coded correctly. Now, for each of our website mistakes, I'm also going to be showing you the full extent of problems that the website has, even though in each case I'm only going to highlight the worst feature in the website. This way, if you see a site that has the same look and feel as yours, you may want to check out the other problems that the site has. So these are all of the problems that are going along with this particular problem here with this particular website. All right, let's take a look at, so the red area there is the main problem. It has frames, but all those dark or bolded areas are also problems that this website has. And notice, by the way, I have kind of softened out the names and companies of most of these sites to protect the innocent. Now, corrections for mistake number 1. Create navigation sections. Okay, let's say you like the ability to have those navigation links to one side, like our first site. No problem. Most sites that are built nowadays do this without the crutch of doing it with frames. Here's a beautiful example of a website that really gets it. Not only does this website not have any frames, but it's well set apart with specific navigational areas. Note the quick search area in the upper right hand, the tabs along the top, the graphical links in the middle of the site, and of course the numerous navigational buttons on the right hand side of the website. This website is immediately in your face with the most important things that the visitor will want to see. Do you have too many graphics? Well, now what does this mean? Graphics are a way to make your website more pleasing, right? And to demonstrate more than words can. However, too many graphics can be deadly to your getting found on the internet. Here's an example of a painfully obvious website as far as getting seen by the search engines. This is what the viewer sees. It's pretty, but as I always say, which would you rather have? A website that is the best looking website in the country that nobody knows about, or an average looking website on the first page of every major search engine in the country? The idea is to be seen by the major search engines like Google. But since Google can't read graphics, what Google sees is basically nothing, especially on a site like this. In other words, while your website is pretty, it's invisible to Google. Thus, no matter how great it looks, you're going to make no money with it, kind of like owning the most gorgeous home on the planet on a secluded island that nobody knows about. So here's the correction for mistake number 2. Have a nice balance of graphics. So what should a website look like with regards to graphics? There should be a nice balance of graphics to text. Now don't start measuring how large the graphic is to the amount of text, as this doesn't count. What does count is that you have at least 200 to 500 words of text on your page, much of which should be above the fold so your viewer can see the content. Your graphics can lead them into the content. Then the content should be interesting enough about the topics they want to know about, and that's the key. However, the key with using good content with SEO is to intersperse your keyword phrases throughout the text that you're using. This will help pull it up higher in the major search engines. And we're going to take a look at an example of this as well a little bit later on. So, again with SEO, do you have congruent content? What does this mean? Now let's get into our last area of your website, your content. To review, we said that of utmost importance is to have your website seen by your visitors. In other words, the importance is to be highly visible on the major search engines. Next, we just reviewed various ways of having a positive design to your website. The whole idea here is to create a hook to catch their attention to want to look further at your site. Now that we've got them looking at your site, let's make the sale. Unfortunately, most agents have no idea of the new changes that Google has made in evaluating your website. It's all about congruent content. This means a congruity of your domain name, website title, and content. To explain this further, let's take a look at how incongruent many agent sites can be. And some of these sites, I gotta tell you, are unbelievable to me when I found them. Here's a great example of how most agent websites are not congruent. This agent's website name is her own name. Her title is Tomball Real Estate, even though her lead line in her content is Houston Real Estate. And her content has several paragraph headers and links that have nothing to do with real estate or Tomball or Houston. So what is this website about? Google has no idea. Is it supposed to focus on the agent, the town, or her real estate area? So let's take a look at how we can build a congruent website. Note that I'm demonstrating here the three main areas of your website here. Again, the domain name, title, and content should all be in agreement, corresponding to or consistent with each other. To demonstrate what I mean, note how when the domain name turns, the title and content are consistent with each other. Content is not congruent. Well, let's demonstrate this further. Let's take a simple example of a domain name, title, and content. Let's say that you sell luxury homes in Denver. You might want to have the domain name of denverluxuryhomes.com or even mydenverluxuryhomes.com or ourdenverluxuryhomes.com or some sort of derivation of this. Or you may want to be into investment properties. See here, we've got denverinvestments.com. Now let's make the title and the content correspond with our domain name. Our title for our luxury homes website might be Denver Luxury Homes for Sale. Again, I'm making these simple. For our investment website, we might want to use Denver Investment Properties. Those would be the titles of the website. And for the content, we'll put these same words into the text of the website using, quote, Denver luxury homes are selling very well in today's market, ... And then you go on from there as an example of our luxury homes website. Or for the investments example, quote, Denver investments have staged a rebound, ... And on and on. For our Denver investments website. Note how we now have a completely congruent website that will get found on the top pages of Google. In other words, Denver Luxury Homes is in the domain name, the title, and the content. Well, let's take a look at the correction now for mistake number 3. Create congruent content. Let's assume that our much improved site here has a domain name and title that are similar to Hampton Waterfront Homes. Our next step is to take advantage of these phrases that are also requested by our potential prospects. Phrases that put into the major search engines are called keyword phrases. In this case, we're using Hampton's Waterfront Homes. Note on our example that I've highlighted all the variations of Hampton's Waterfront Homes. This would indicate that we have a good keyword density for this particular keyword phrase. Note, it's all over the place. So for the last thing for our SEO, or the first third of our discussion, is the blog site. Do you have a blog site? And our last element of the SEO portion of the website should be this question. Here's what an old-fashioned website looks like. It's built with too much of what I call stuff. In fact, there's so much stuff that you don't know where to look first. The irony is that with all this stuff on the site, there's no blog site. This site is very cluttered and has no focus. Do you make mistake number 4? Using no blog site? Again, let's take a look at the difference between the structure of the website and the blog site. I think that this will demonstrate why you need both. Note that here on the left-hand side, we have a typical website. Aside from all the features that we'll be talking about in this webinar, one thing is constant with all websites. Due to the fact that they change content so relatively infrequently, the major search engines will re-index the content every 2 to 3 months. Now let's take a look at the typical blog site, and I could have pulled up any blog site here. By its very nature, the blog site is highly content-oriented. Blog site content changes constantly, and new information comes out on the new antics of, let's say, Paris Hilton, new bills in Congress, or even interest rate changes and background information. In other words, blogs are content-driven and therefore need to be updated much more frequently. In fact, whereas websites are re-indexed by the search engines every 2 to 3 months, blog sites are re-indexed every 2 to 3 hours. So why does this make such a difference in your website visibility? Well, if you have your website linked to your blog site and your blog site linked to your website, then you get the benefit of the faster re-indexing, and the search engines will follow each link to read both sites. Let's take a look at how this works with an effective website, or a correction for mistake number 4. Note here that the tab link to Crystal's blog site, when the viewer clicks on it, goes to this link and automatically takes them to her blog site. However, more importantly, note that from the blog site is the home button that links back to the website. Why is this so important? Let's not look at this from the viewer standpoint, but from the search engine standpoint. Which will be the search engines find first? The search engine will find the blog first, right? And then if the blog is linked back to the website, boom, now you've got the website being ranked, re-ranked, and re-indexed every 2 to 3 hours. Okay, let's jump over to design now. Do you have a rotating slideshow? Let's get into the design aspects of your website. Remember, we have 4 issues here as well. The first, which is the problem, the way to get the agents to your site. No slideshows, you got a problem. So, do you make mistake number 5? Here's a great example of what I mean. I've tried to capture here a website that, for all intents and purposes to its owner, is probably deemed to be professional and effective. However, you're going to have a lot of patience to read through all the verbiage that she has to know what message she wants to give you. Without a rotating slideshow, the focus is all on the agent and how she is trying to get you as a client. Now let's take a look at a correction for this. Notice I bring up this particular website, and boom, immediately it starts going into its slideshow. And this slideshow forces me to look at it. Humans have the ability to look at particular pictures, and they're interested as long as they're changing. This keeps my eyes on the website longer, and then as I read from left to right, I then go over to the information to the right-hand side, which again is very effective features that we'll be talking about and is in my face. But again, just the fact that we have the slideshow keeps my eyeballs tuned in to the website longer. Okay, do you have featured listings? Note that I've separated out the featured listings from the rotating slideshows. While the featured listing can be demonstrated in the slideshow can be used for so much more. Plus, the featured listing can be demonstrated in different ways as well. For this reason, we'll look at each as a separate feature. So, do you make mistake number 6? No featured listings. Here we begin to see what may seem to be a nice website with many positive features, but unfortunately, there are more things going wrong with this site than are good. For example, take a look at the very large photo. While this could have been a rotating slideshow, demonstrating the area, or a featured listing for the buyer's focus, the agent is just showing a welcome image. That's all this is. Let's not forget that sellers want to stand out from the crowd. This is the one feature that you're going to have on your website that's going to be built specifically for the seller. Do it right, and it'll make you a ton of money. Do it wrong, and it'll be an addition to your money pit. So let's take a look at how some agents have really done well with this particular feature. Featured listings can be shown in many ways, but should always be thought of through the eyes of the seller. Remember, that's where you're going to make your money. It's not from showing them on your website, but from showing them to your seller with their property already in place as the featured listing. Now, this is especially effective if it can be done in the slideshow feature, but it can work well in other ways. For example, let's take a look at our first example. Here, we have a very professional looking website that is focusing on their featured listings. What you can't see is that each one is built on a multimedia showcase. Each one can be clicked on and a full multimedia presentation will be shown. And here's another idea. This is a blend of the showcasing of the featured listing with associated slideshows with other featured listings here as well. This is a great opportunity to get the seller hooked. You tell the seller this is their home, and by the way, if they can list with you tonight, you'll be able to leave this very prominent on your website for millions of people to see. If they can't list with you tonight, it's illegal for you to leave it on there, and you'll have to take it off. And guess what? The guilt factor combined with the desire to take advantage of the existence of what you've already done for them will push them many times over the edge. Very few other agents are going to go this far, and if done right, doesn't really cost you that much time and nothing in expense. Well, let's go to our next area. Do you have multimedia, which is photos, podcasts, video, and more? While we've dealt with slideshows separately, it only makes sense to mention all the other ways that we can present multimedia. I'm sure that this website has every good intention of giving assistance to the viewer. It seems that the only thing the agent is offering is a search the MLS. Very poorly done. So a correction for this, now that we have a website that gets it, this is a great way to showcase a featured listing. This is a multimedia presentation, and we can go through each of the rooms below. Again, from the design area, our last element. Do you have social media synchronization? What's social media synchronization? Well, I'm going to show you. Well, you know what the website is now. You know what social media is. Now we have to marry the two together. We're going to add Twitter, Facebook, and others right onto your website. I have to admit that trying to find websites that didn't have social media synchronization was way too easy. Here's one that I decided to use for several reasons. First of all, take a look at what the agent wants you to focus on. Him. In addition, take a look at the very large open area to the right of the content. It's not even being used for anything. This is sad, as it very easily could have been used for social media links. The correction for mistake number 8 includes social media. Here's a website that really gets it with regard to social media synchronization. Focus now on the right-hand side of this website. Not only does the agent invite you to subscribe to his various social media, but he also shares others that have already subscribed. The benefit of synchronization for your posts from your social media to your website is that you get your messages across multiple platforms at the same time. Okay, let's talk about content then. This is the third of the 3 areas that we wanted to look at. What is bogus content? Any content that is not what the prospective viewer is looking for. Do you really think that they're looking for the best realtor in your area? Nope. They want to find the services that they're looking for. So, do you make mistake number 9? Here's a typical example of what I mean by bogus content. Here we have agents who think that the first thing that the viewer or prospect wants to know is that how they'll earn their business. What hits you in the face when you see this site, 2 agent faces, and content in very small print on how they want your business and what they'll do for you? Consumers are searching for your services online. If there's one thing that you have to remember, it is your services. They don't want to know how wonderful you are or how you've won all sorts of awards until they'll know how much you'll care for them and how much information you have for them. In other words, what services do you have to offer? So here's the correction for mistake number 9. The vast majority of agents and websites make this their worst mistake, and I call it bogus content. Why bogus? Because it's misleading to the visitor. Keep in mind that the reason that they found your website is because they're looking for information for their interest. So, here's how you make it interesting for them. This is the correction, and remember I told you to have keyword density, you want to put those keywords filtered throughout your website. And here I've simply highlighted, blown up, the various keywords that this particular one of our web warriors does for his particular website. And by the way, if you wanted to go to the Pittsburgh area or North Pittsburgh, which is where he focuses on, you put in almost any search, his website will come up. This is Kevin Mims' website. Okay, content. Do you have Search the MLS? Well, I'm going to spend very little time here because everybody has searched the MLS. NAR tells us that this is the #1 thing that agents look at, but it's unbelievable to me that we have some websites out there like this that not only don't have Search the MLS, but look at this one. This one, in your face, is asking you to sign in. The worst thing that you want to take a look at. So, do you make mistake number 10? This is how your prospects search for you in the comfort of their own home, in maybe a couch, just kind of perusing through websites. If they don't see one that they like, very quickly they'll jump to another. When I get into my consulting sessions, I will tell you that you have 5 seconds to interest your particular viewer. If they're not interested by then, they're out of there. So here's an agent that really gets it. Not only does she understand what the prospect is looking for first, she is giving them multiple ways to find it. In other words, she offers several ways to search the MLS. Note how in the upper left-hand search, the agent gives the buyer the ability to search by location. Then they can search by city, neighborhood, zip code, or MLS number. To the right, the agent offers a quick search widget, and along the left-hand side, the agent offers many different methods and locations to search the MLS. This is the type of website that definitely gets bookmarked. So, do you have new home alerts? Okay, if you write no other notes, please make notes on this particular area. Having been in the world of developing websites and productivity sites, I've got to tell you, this is number one. The feature to search listings is great, but it will only get you bookmarked. Having the feature for new homes alerts or subscribe to new listings or new properties alerts, that's the thing that will not only get you bookmarked, but will make you money. Here's the way not to do it. This is a rather boring site anyway that is seen all too often. It has very little to offer the typical buyer. Note also the poor use of spacing and content. Too much space is taken up to offer too little content to the buyer. Now, let's juxtapose this with this. I love the tagline on this website. Because you have better things to do, now this is focused on the visitor. And look at what they offer the visitor as the first benefit of visiting this website. The ability to subscribe to new listings. In the description, the agent makes the following explanation. Your first email will list all homes currently for sale that meet your search criteria. Then, each morning, you will be emailed a list of all the new homes for sale and price changes since your previous search. In other words, this is Search the MLS on steroids. They enter the information one time and then automatically it gets sent back to them. But how does it get sent back to them? That's right. They're going to have to input their name, their email address, and phone number, but do they do that first? No. They do that as the last part of the input process. So that is an excellent website to take a look at to correct mistake number 11. All right, and finally we take a look at content for the RSS feeds. Do you make mistakes here for RSS feeds? This site, like way too many others, has an interesting irony. While it is offering some very interesting general statistics on various locations, it doesn't offer the visitor a way to subscribe to this information. I might say to look at this and say, wow, I'd really like to get this information, but I don't have a way to subscribe to it. If only she had an RSS button here, I could know exactly when these median prices changed, when they went up, when they went down, when the percentages changed, and so forth. Think of RSS feeds like this. Let's say you're going for a newspaper, you go to the corner, and this is what you see. When you get there, you see that there are many papers to choose from. Viewing the front pages of each of these papers is like your visitors viewing the front page of your website. Just like the newspaper company hasn't really captured the visitor yet. Neither have you captured your audience if they're only looking at your site. Let's say that you become engaged with the paper that you choose to read. What would you typically do? You'd probably subscribe to it. Then you'd read it. The same analogy works for your website. If your visitor likes what they see, they're going to subscribe to it. And they'll start reading it. Now let's go back to the newspaper analogy here. Let's say you become especially enamored with the living and real estate sections of the newspaper. Did you know that you can actually call up the newspaper, cancel your subscription to the entire paper, and only subscribe to those 2 sections that interest you? Yep. And the newspaper won't think you're a loon or anything. All you'll want to do is to subscribe to the RSS feeds of those 2 sections. Here is an example of the New York Times RSS feeds. All you have to do is to decide which sections you want to subscribe to. In fact, not only will you be able to get some of the same information that you use from the delivery service each morning, you'll get that information faster. Think about it. The newspaper can post any story electronically before they print it. So you'll get your information as it is happening. And we wonder why newspapers are losing money. Well, they're all going online now. Here's the correction for mistake number 12. RSS feeds are particularly effective with blog sites as their information changes much more frequently. This is what makes this blog site more effective by placing an RSS feed symbol and link next to the article. Just as content is king with websites, content is also the major factor with blog sites. If your visitor reads your content or post and doesn't find anything compelling to subscribe to, then you've lost them. Therefore, make sure that you're always writing blog posts as if they were your last one. Quickly done posts are at least better than nothing at all, but posts done with a little more research and references show your audience that you care about what you're writing each time you post. Now, many times you can find articles or periodicals and magazines and things like that that you can rewrite, but make sure that you either give credit where credit is due or you totally rewrite that particular article. How would it be if you had a consultant show you the way? This represents your competition. Why? Because when new ideas come along, they hide their heads in the sand and pretend they're not there. Much of what we've been talking about today has been coming about for years, yet only a few agents, as you saw earlier as we began this webinar, have taken the vision to understand it. This could be you. If only you knew what these agents know, you would be making, on the average, these are my web warriors, an average of over $104,000. That's what they make just from their websites. Our adage here is, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. You've heard that before. Well, first, the horse has to get to the water. And that's what SEO is. Search engine optimization will lead your website to the visitors you want to have to your website. Tomorrow will be a better day. This is going to be a new dawn. Successful agents wake up exhilarated about the day ahead. Why? Because they've got a naturally better attitude. Why? Because they've got a website working for them. It's passive income. Are you a part of the crowd? A huge number of real estate agents that are just out there? Or do you want to stand out from the crowd? This is the time you are the agent that wants to stand out and have a website that's compelling and rank at the top of Google. How can the best way be for you to be on smartphones, social media, and cameras? You want to succeed. And I want you to succeed. Too many of you are making too little from your website. Everyone could use some simple suggestion with regard to their SEO and your website. And yet many are skeptical of today's claims. That's okay. I'd like to help you feel better about your internet marketing options. And I'm not charging you a fee or anything to be able to do that. Let me give you a helping hand. Let me show you how you can improve your internet marketing presence. Call for a free 30-minute consulting appointment. See how you can utilize any part of your technology to make dramatic income for you. I'll show you the tips others have made to create a compelling internet marketing reality. People, this is all I do. All I do is every day look over people's websites, the successful ones and the bad ones, and we target off of the successful ones, and I will show you in our half-hour interview what the successful websites are and why they're so successful. Really, it's no charge. It's on me. Just set up an appointment by calling us at our number, toll-free, 800-277-1316. Get answers to all of your questions. So what do you have questions about? Internet promotions, compelling website design issues, SEO, what's the best domain name and how to find it? What's the best way to get your site to the top of the search engines? Or do you have questions about social media, smartphones, the new QR barcodes, and text advertising? Whatever it is, the time is yours. Just set up an appointment and find out what it is that you can do better to make money using your website. Why wait? Remember the Nike slogan. Just do it. We are the #1 in the world now for real estate SEO companies, and this gives us an opportunity to show you what we can do for you. Now, this is not just me saying it, this is Google saying. If you remember nothing else from our time together, remember this thought by Theodore Roosevelt. In any moment of decision, the best thing that you can do is the right thing. The next best thing is the wrong thing. And the worst thing that you can do is nothing. Thank you for attending today, and have a great day.